It seemed like a lot of the guys were just kind of, not on their knees, but kind of crouched down, exhausted after the game. It felt like just kind of another one in a long line of disappointments. What's just the mood in the locker room after this one, and how do you try and pick up the pieces after this one?
Obviously disappointing, and again, I think we work on a couple things this week, which is getting in front of goal. Did a really good job of that. And then you give up a corner kick and a penalty kick, and it's like these penalty kicks are so subjective that at times defies logic, and now it's 2-2. And the third goal started from a poor decision in the attacking third. Again, like, you can't joystick, you got to learn from the decisions are just professional decisions to keep the ball. Gozo's wide open, and we try to shove it into the middle, and now we're in transition with minutes left in the game. And so, but again, that's a byproduct of working with young players. They're going to make silly mistakes, and this is how the game is experienced. At the moment, we're all wearing it, and hopefully, we learn from this. But that's where we're at.
Speaking of Gozo, a dream start, obviously, first MLS goal for him. It seems like really rapid improvement over the last couple weeks. What have you seen from him, and were you surprised at all by that goal by him in the opening minute?
No. I've been witnessing it in training, and today we went out with essentially a 2-forward look, and again, I think it adds a little bit more dynamism to our attack. Instead of having 2 10s that are just floating, is really threatening the back line. And I think the play, he gets him behind, and that was exactly what those are the things that we've been working on. And then obviously from there, Gozo just makes a play. And I think it'd been a long time coming. He's been in really good spots, and I think it's a moment like that really accelerate your belief, accelerate your career. And again, for me, one of the bright spots on the field tonight.
So great start to the game, 2 goals in less than 10 minutes. What needs to get better in order to finish off these games for you guys?
Well, you can't concede corner kicks, and you can't give up PKs, I guess. And again, for me, that's not a penalty kick. Willie knows nothing about it. And that goes back to, I think, the frustration that all coaches around the world have with this handball. There's no objectivity to it. There's a play where the ball hits the guy's hand in the second half. And that's not a handball. And so again, like, how do you judge these things? So for me, it's one of those things. And again, I think in the second half we had some quality chances, but you got to take them. There's a couple that we fanned over the goal. But again, I think tonight we're as dangerous as we've been. And like their guy did at the end there, takes a shot from 18, 20 yards out and scores the goal. I mean, you need to execute. I mean, that's not a drawn-up play. That's a play that he makes a decision and executes on that play. And so we're getting in those spots. We're being more dangerous in the final third, and now we just need to execute. So those things get, those 2 set pieces, or set piece and a penalty kick, and then finish our chances is the way we get out of it, and to keep our head down and keep grinding.
And then I guess I'll just ask you, 14 points in 15 games so far. Should we be worried where the team is at so far?
Yeah, listen, I think everyone is in a bad way. And we knew starting the season that we were going to be under it, given our attacking situation. But we found ourselves in position to win games regardless. And the thing with young teams is when things don't go right, it just be like, these guys are young men, right? And when things don't go right, oftentimes it snowballs because they don't have the psychological immunity or the experiences at this level to be able to overcome. If we had a much experienced group, I would say, yeah, I'd be really, really concerned. But again, I think when you have a young team, this is par for the course. They're gaining their experience in real time. There's no way to. It's like, when you give advice to young people, they don't understand what the words mean yet because they haven't lived it. So we're a young team, and we started the season without a striker with any experience. So these are all byproducts of what we're going through, and it's for me, it's completely, it's normal to have that. Now, if we had experience across the front line, 4 positions, and we're not scoring goals, I'd be really, really concerned. But these players, Gozo, Dominic, Ari, Forster, these guys are cutting their teeth. They're cutting their teeth. And so if the expectations are that they should be where Belonga and all these other guys are, it's not realistic. So it depends on what world or what glasses you're looking out of to feel like we're not there yet. We are cutting our teeth in real time, and unfortunately it's affecting results. You know, if it was a safe place where the results don't matter, it'd be a lot easier to digest. But I think the guys are doing great. Guys like Gozo, doing fantastic. You know, Diego Luna is doing great. So like, but as a team, we're a really young team, and these moments affect the group a lot more than if you'd have experienced guys. And so it's always a tough balance for me, because I know how fragile they are in these moments. Older guys, you can really lay into them and say, hey, listen, that is just not okay. Younger guys, you're still developing them. You're trying to create a safe environment for them to be able to take risks. And so like the third goal with Ari, what am I going to say to him? Just make the pass to Gozo and we keep it? And then Gozo drives and then dishes it to Diego at the top of the box as opposed to forcing the ball. Experienced players wouldn't make that pass. That's not even in their realm, right? So I think that's the challenge for our group is when you're in a bad way, it's really difficult to overcome because they haven't experienced these moments yet, but they're learning, and they're giving max effort.
And maybe a little bit on that topic of the young team coach. Is there anybody in this locker room who you've noticed kind of stepping up in moments like these? It's one thing when, you know, coach gets up here and talks about young teams growing and developing and that kind of thing. It feels like it's something entirely different when there's a player that can kind of step up and lay in when he needs to lay in, but also bring around the younger guys and say, hey, you're getting better. Are you seeing any of that?
Yeah, I am, and it's tough. You know, I think Rafa's been that guy. You know, and I think Rafa is dealing with kind of the same things that I'm dealing with is how hard can you be on these guys? You know, so we're speaking from a place of positivity, belief. One of the things that we talked about before the locker room is express yourself. Just be brave. Don't worry about these kind of things because again, if you start to really be critical to these young players, then they lose their confidence, and now they're not developing in the way. And I think, you know, Rafa is that guy. Jay Glad has been that guy. But the flip side of that is those guys need support too, right? They need guys because again they're human beings, so they're living these results along with everyone else. And so, yeah, it's tough at the moment. I believe we have the character to overcome. Again, I think we scored 2 wonderful goals, and you know. The 2 moments that we conceded are like you're just kind of shaking your head at like how things in this moment aren't breaking our way, and they really haven't from the beginning of the season. But again, I believe that we have a group that can compete with any team in this league, and it's about overcoming this difficult circumstance that we're currently find ourselves in to claw our way out. And again, I think if we put 2 good results together, the whole vibe changes. And especially when you have performances like Gozo and Diego Luna, that will change the feeling of the group.
Hey, Pablo. I got a question for you, and I've kind of been meaning to ask you this one for a couple weeks now. But with the team getting a new ownership, I kind of want to get your perspective on your relationship with the ownership and what their vision for the team is. There wasn't a lot of investment before this season. We've talked about that. It's a very young team, and we've talked about that. But the results just aren't really there right now. Is the ownership understanding of that? Do they understand that they need investment, we need better players? Or is the ownership in kind of a win-now mode? Are they putting pressure on you to win these games?
Well, listen, I think anytime you're in professional sports, the expectation is to win regardless of the circumstances. I've had a couple conversations with Steve, not in depth, really superficial. And the one thing I can tell you from that is they're a team that are very prideful. They're a group that's very prideful in the team. I think when you hand over, when you take the reins as an ownership group, you have to observe to see how everything works and how the team is going. But they want to make this club, something that everyone can be really, really proud of. And obviously that means investment. And I think the next window is coming in the summer. We've identified some areas that we want to fortify. But I think that's all I can speak to as far as what their vision is. I haven't had in-depth conversations, but it's a team that they are very they're excited to invest in this group to make this a great team, just like they did when they owned the Jazz, and to be perennial playoff contenders, get trophy winners, and I just think in how recent this transition has been, I think they're still observing to see how everything works, and more importantly, how and when they'll invest in the group.
And then one more question. We talked about this earlier in the season with regards to substituting guys on the back line, and I know you said sometimes it's planned and sometimes it's not. But tonight was a night where we subbed 3 guys on the back line, and when I asked you about this before, you said you never want to do something like that. So my question is, were any of those planned? It seemed like Vera may have come off a little bit sooner, and I know he's just coming back from an injury, but
Yep.
Were any of those substitutions planned, or what was the thinking behind those 3 subs?
No, great question. Vera had played 60 minutes with the Monarchs last week, and obviously the pace of play. At halftime, he was gassed, and I asked him if he can give 10 minutes more, right? So that was that. So Philip comes in for Vera, who's also been out with injury, to get those guys up to speed. Alex busted his tail in the first half, getting to the highest line, and the thought behind that was we want to keep pressing their back line. I don't think it manifested much in the second half with Sam getting to the highest line and actually maybe I think once or twice he did, where he played a really good ball across. So that's the idea. That's a position where typically we'll probably make that sub, because I consider that more of a wing back sub than a left back sub. And then Noel was gassed, and it wasn't a sub that I wanted to make. We wanted to bring in Johnny into this game, but I think you defend a guy like Nelson for whatever it is, 80 minutes, you're gonna be gassed, and so that's really the thought behind all those.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Matty.
Hey, Pablo. We spoke earlier in the week, and I was wondering if you could tell us what you thought went well and what went poorly with set pieces tonight.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, again, I think we were more dangerous on set pieces than the attacking set pieces. And again, I think there's really no mystery to set pieces. Like, you can do trick plays, but the nuts and bolts of set pieces is great delivery with bravery, right? And bravery, I mean like beating your man to the spot, even though you don't know where that spot's going to be. And so you're taking almost a blind approach to where that is. And if we have everyone committed to doing that, the likelihood is we're going to get our head on some. And tonight we did. They just weren't on goal. I think defensively, again, losing marks in the box, and then the penalty kick. So like, it's tough at the moment, right? Because I think we're still the only team in the league that hasn't scored on a set piece, and those are moments, just like Vancouver tonight, let you back into the game. And then not everything's going to be a football play to score a goal. You need set pieces that relieve the pressure from the group. So again, we worked on it this week, and we'll continue to work on it until, for the rest of the season.
What, specifically on the first goal, was that a plan for Caliscan to be marking Brian White, or
yeah,
we
got to go back and look at that. That didn't feel right. And the one thing about Noel that I'll say is he's pretty dialed in most scenarios, right? And so we'll go back and talk about that and see how we can, that didn't feel right.
I mean, he was tight. And he had a hand there, but Brian just got a little bit of
strong.
space, that a taller guy.
Yep.
What did you think of Dom and Gozo together out there? Obviously, Gozo scored the first goal. Dom set up the second. What
Yeah,
did you
no,
see?
again, I think the focus this week, Matty, was how do we get more box entries? And, you know, the way that we have been doing it is a lot of rotations in the final third, a lot, you know, our 10s dropping out of those pockets. So the focus was really about being more direct. And Dom can threaten the space behind, and Gozo can threaten the space behind. And I really liked how it unsettled the group. You know, the Vancouver defense was constantly being challenged in different ways, and it gave space for Diego Luna to come underneath. And so, again, those spaces don't show up unless you have threats behind. There's no reason to honor that. You know, so that, you know, recently the defending team has been able to press Luna and Diogo, but when you have verticality, you have to really think about you know, giving up the space behind. So I think the two of them did a really good job tonight. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough.
Obviously, there's some positives out of this game. As Cabral has been just the best player on the defense, maybe on the team this season, and he was superlative tonight. Thoughts on his play tonight?
I can't say enough about Rafa. I mean, I feel like he's an assistant coach. I feel like he's a mentor to all the players, which has been amazing. But I also think he's been our best performer game in and game out. And the plays he makes to keep us in games is unheard of. I've never seen anything like it, to be honest. And the interesting thing, and one of the things I keep telling our younger players, is the most important day is Tuesday, because it's a day no one's watching. It's a day that you can slough off, and you think you can slough off. But Rafa he's diving on Tuesdays at 35 years old. You know, he's a guy that does not take anything for granted, and it shows in every performance. And the more guys that we can get Rafa to rub off on, you know, I think, you know, like you said, superlatives. He's been amazing.
And mentality is a huge, huge thing with you and the club and every club. What are your thoughts on how you change? It looked like the pressure got to them as the game wore on. You could see them kind of making rush decisions that ended up in the third goal. How do you approach that with young players so that it doesn't continue on through the whole season?
Yeah, no, I think I'll flip that and ask the questions like, when is your 21-year-old son going to finally understand how important being on time is? You know, I don't know. I don't know, but it takes some time. It takes some time until, because the difficult thing is, you learn something when it affects you. You learn something when it touches your soul. You learn something when you get left out. You learn something when something negative happens, right? And I think we have to play younger guys. So it's like, there's no, like, we can sit him out for a little bit and let him learn his lesson. He's got to go out on Wednesday and go at it again. And so, like, I think that is the most, that's the toughest part. I think that's the toughest part, is because for me, life is the greatest teacher. And when you can't remove some guy that's being really, really productive in one area because the pressure's getting high and they start making bad decisions, we just can't afford to do that. Because then we're killing his ability to learn from it, because he's not coming out, but he's also really important for the team in real time. So that's the biggest challenge. And again, like I said, I think, you know, with younger players, it's like, if you have 1, 2, I think you can manage it. If you start getting 4 or 5, then that, like, emotional, like, it's overwhelming, the moments in the games to overcome. And, you know, you can't expect them to act like Rafa in goal. I mean, it's just not fair. It's not right, and it'll never happen, right? So I think that's our biggest challenge, is how do we take the group and overcome the psychological hurdles. And I think the only way to do that is to win.
Thanks, Pablo.
Yep.
Thanks, Pablo.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.